Hello. Oh, ow. Put my neck out. Okay, I'm live on Facebook. No one's there yet, so I'm talking to them. No one's there. Anyway, no one's on YouTube yet either. Anyway, it's Saturday, 4/21. I'm doing my live. I don't think I did one yesterday. Just waiting for people to turn up. If you're on my Facebook Live, can you just confirm that I'm on my Bratbusters Facebook page? Am I on my parenting Facebook page? Can you just confirm that for me? I never know what I'm doing. So, am I on my parent? Can you just confirm that I'm on my parenting Facebook page? Because I'm worried that I'm on another page. Are you here for parenting stuff? Is that what? Denmark. Hi, Denmark. So if you could just confirm that for me, I'd really appreciate it. So this is I'm on my parenting page, right? For Facebook. Yes, on the parenting. Okay, thanks. Anyway, I finally got my Facebook account back after a week. They didn't even apologize or anything. So yeah, a whole week that I didn't have this Facebook account. So they needed my driver's license twice. Anyway. Finally got it back. I'm thrilled to be back. So I haven't done a live on here in a whole week. So yeah, thanks so much for that. Thanks for confirming that I am on the Bratbusters one. So anyway, if you're new here, welcome. If you're not new here, welcome back. My name's Lisa. I'm a parenting coach. And if you go on the link above, you can see my free behavior board, my mini toddler courses, my big boot camp course, 3 to 12 years old. It's all focused on you and your parenting. Or you can look into coaching. I have a wait list for coaching right now. But you can look into it. I mix up the ages of people I want to be working with at any given time. So I may take you on today even because I've got 3 openings today and I know the ages that I want. So anyway, okay, I do specialize in teenagers, but I like to mix it up. But if you're in crisis, that's priority, like crisis work, usually with teenagers or abuse or stuff like that. Okay, how do you start potty breaking a little boy sitting down or standing up? What's potty breaking? What's potty? Is that just a typo? Or is that some new term I'm not aware of? So maybe potty training, is that what you're thinking? Anyway, it's a whole method that I invented. I started it with my own kids. Everything I teach, I learned either through parenting or through working with other kids, usually working with other kids. Okay, so check out my potty training. Yeah, potty training. Check out my potty party course. It's one of my mini toddler courses, and it teaches you how to potty train. I trained my son in 1 day, my daughter in 2 days, no pull-ups, no night diapers, nothing. But I was already kind of a leader anyway, so they were more inclined to listen to me. And it's all done with fun, the potty party. And like if they peed on the floor, I would have gone, oh, mommy pees on the floor too, no big deal. So, and you clean up all messes. It's all positive. And but anyway, it's a really good way to start exercising your leadership skills because you're training them with fun. Toddlers' love language is play and fun. So that's why the potty party is a party. It's just you and your little ones. It's very messy, but it's a party. Not so much for you, but for them. Okay, so that's in the link above, the potty class. Anyway, sorry. I'm such a mess. Put my neck out this morning. I don't know what I did. Okay. So I can't turn left, but I can turn right. You know, whenever that happens, you just feel your whole body turning left. Okay, so I'm just waiting for more questions. I'm very happy to be back here on Facebook. I was locked out of my account for a whole week. I've got a big following now, or decent following now, and there's lots of imposters out there trying to steal money off people, pretending to be me. They're using my name, my company, my videos, everything. It's all free. It's all free information, like free game, all my videos and that, but still they're not allowed to pretend to be me. So yeah, so I guess that's why I was locked out. Maybe they thought I was not me. I don't know. Anyway. Okay. Just waiting for your parenting questions. While we're waiting, what do I want to talk about while we're waiting? Oh, this is a really common thing that happens in coaching when I'm working with clients. is I say this a lot. I say the more you explain, the more they complain. When you've already explained something, they understand it, okay? They might have forgotten, but they understand it. So then parents get pulled into, but why? But why? I would never answer that. Like I just wouldn't. Not fair, not fair, all that. And then parents get pulled into explaining themselves. I don't do that. Yeah, don't do that. Leaders don't explain themselves. So yeah, but why? Not fair. Say whatever, and then just walk away. So once you've laid down the law, just because they don't like it, you don't have to keep talking. So the more you explain, the more they complain. It makes you look weak, and they're winning, and they know it too, by the way. Keeping teens away from porn. Good luck with that. You can't take away technology from a teenager. They're going to use their friends' phones anyway, so there's not much you can say. But what you can do is balance out porn with reality. Porn does not go into STDs and feelings. So whenever I've talked to kids about sex, teenagers about sex, I never discussed it without also discussing STDs and feelings. So those are two things that are eliminated from porn. And, I say, I'm not stupid. I know they're going to look at it. So I say, you can learn the mechanics through porn, but it's not reality. That's not usually what's going on in real life. So maybe sometimes it is, but generally it's, anyway, that's how I talk to kids about it. Try and balance it out with some more reality. How do I keep a 4-year-old sitting down for a meal? Use my free behavior board. It's up on the link above, and you put down follow mealtime routine. And the mealtime routine is you come to the table within 5 minutes of being asked to do so. You don't get up from the table till the meal's over. And then the last one is you put your dishes in the dishwasher, on the counter, or in the sink before you leave the kitchen. That's it. If they don't follow that, there's a consequence. And don't discuss it during. So if they didn't come to the table when they were supposed to, don't say anything. Just whenever they get there, just, oh, did I break the rule? We'll discuss it after dinner. You don't ruin a dinner by discussing what they're doing wrong. So good balance with reality. Yeah, good luck with that. I do specialize in teenagers. They're going to look at that stuff. It's just reality, okay? They want to know what's going on, but it doesn't give them a fair indication of what's really happening. Whenever I talk to, I can't go into it here. Anyway, I do specialize in teenagers. I've talked to a lot of schools about this. No, I can't say it on here. Never mind. There might be kids on here, so I probably already said too much. Never mind. 4-year-old who bites. Just put no biting on the behavior board, and every time they bite, there's a consequence. It's very rare for 4-year-olds to be biting. They don't usually use their mouth. They usually are more likely to hit. It just says to past the age of 4, they only do what works. It just says it's been working for them. So make sure there's a consequence. We all learn through consequences. That's why we pay our taxes. We don't want to go to jail. That's why we pay our mortgage. We don't want to be foreclosed on. That's why we don't speed as much as we'd like, because we might get a ticket. See what I mean? We all run our lives with consequence because of consequences. So the sooner you teach your children about consequences, the better, right? You're doing them a favor. I used to tell my kids, if you're good, life is good. If you're bad, life ain't so good. I'll make sure of that because I'm your mom and that's my job. So yeah, I always taught them that they were very empowered. It's all their choice. Life is up to them. I never told them what to do. It's up to you. Do whatever you want. But I'm going to be here to have a consequence if you make a bad choice, right? So that's why they were so easy, because they felt very empowered. They felt like they were in control. What shall I expect from my soon-to-be 2-year-old or remember when parenting? I'll read out. It's the last one that I want you to pay attention to. These are my top 5 tips for parenting toddlers. This is under the age of 3. To me, a toddler is like 16 months to 35 months. I've just made that up, but that's the way I look at it. Okay. Number 1, child-proof your home so you never have to say no. Number 2, set up a toy rotation system so they're never bored. Number 3, when you want to connect with a toddler, you do so in their world. You don't go to the nail salon with them. You go to the park and roll down the hill. They just look at you differently when you enter their world. And their love language is fun, okay? And number 4 is when you want to discipline a toddler, it's consistent corrective actions. They learn through repetition. They won't stop the bad behavior the 20th time you correct them. It might be the 50th. Then they might stop for a week and start up again. And you just keep doing the process over and over again, okay? So stop with the mini therapy sessions discussing all their big feelings and big emotions. That is absolute crap. I don't know who invented that, but toddlers are not about therapy sessions. That was invented for the moms to make her feel good about herself. I see it all the time out in public. And they're looking around while they're doing this as if they're impressing me or anybody else around. Well, I love you and you're a big boy. And I'm like, oh God, I'm like, are you kidding me? It's ridiculous. Yeah, they're not about therapy sessions. Okay, I see it all the time. Drives me insane. And number 5, this is for you. Stop trying to figure them out. Toddlers are not figure outable. They're brand new, fresh human beings. They might even go like this and smear poop on the wall. Try and make sense out of that. I mean, they're just crazy. Well, actually, I always call them crazy, but they just haven't developed sanity yet. Okay. Imagine if you've only been in the world for 2 years. In the first year, you were a potato laying on a mattress. So it's more about managing their environment and just understanding that they're nuts. Okay. It's the best advice I can give you. I do deal with parents who have toddlers in coaching, and we're basically just building a base. We're sort of working on the ground floor so that by the time they hit 3, there's a fork in the road at 3. If you've been a leader and you've been consistent, they might not, they still are, because they don't have any impulse control, right? So it's not that they don't know right from wrong when they're little. They just can't control themselves. But by the time they hit 3, they can. So if you've been a good leader, even though they're crazy and all that, but you've been following through with consequences and all that, consistent corrective actions with toddlers, and you've been very good at managing their environment. By the time they hit 3, they're going to be super easy. If you haven't been doing any of that, they go the other way. It's almost like they stop and think, wait a minute, have I got a parent for a leader or not? Which way am I going to go? It's that fork in the road at 3 years old. That's why the behavior board starts at 3, because that's when their frontal lobe is starting to form. Before that, it's just a marble and some tumbleweeds in there. But yeah, it's starting to form, and they're starting to stop and think before they act. That's not true. They have the ability to stop and think before they act. They're not going to do it on their own. You need to teach them this. Okay. Okay, so you've got a child that's been in the hospital for a whole year with with a tracheotomy, all sorts of medical issues. I've worked with a lot of kids in, I don't know what you call it, long-term care, severe, I try really hard to treat them like they're like every other kid. So a lot of parents who have had children who are fragile, they tend to treat them with, very, very cautiously, and just be aware of that. You still want to teach them right from wrong. But I worked with a lot of disabled children and children who've had a lot of medical issues. And I always worked really hard to treat them like every other kid with, of course, some, different care and all that. But anyway, controversial question, but opinion on spanking. Spanking and yelling are 2 things that parents do because they work in the short term, but they backfire in the long term. It's just your own lack of control because you don't know what else to do. Okay, that's not necessary. I teach everything else to do, so just keep watching. Yeah, that's key. We treat them as normal as we possibly can. It's a challenge, but we do it. Yeah, good for you. That would be my best advice for children who've had some medical challenges or development challenges or whatever. You really want to try and, just treat them like every other kid. Years ago, I don't remember the situation, but I was watching a show, and a child who was disabled was treated very differently from the siblings. No, they weren't disabled. They'd had some medical issues, but they were okay now. But the parents were still spoiling this child rotten because they'd almost lost this child. And the other kids noticed it. And this kid said to their parents one day, "Don't you love me enough to discipline me?" Whoa. Kids equate discipline with love. They get it. Love your children enough to teach them right from wrong and guide them in the right direction. But yeah, it must have been a show I was watching because I wouldn't have been there when that would have happened. But anyway, that was like 30, 40 years ago. I never forgot that. Don't you love me enough to discipline me? Isn't that cute? Yeah, love your kids enough to discipline them. Love your kids enough to turn them into nice human beings. Give them something to be proud of. Children who are acting rotten and being bad all the time, where's their pride? They have none. Their self-esteem's in the toilet, guaranteed. So give your children something to be proud of, being nice people. Yes, kids are very funny. Someone just said, Shelby. One of my clients right now, I wrote it down somewhere. Where did I write that? Oh, I don't want to lose it. Where did I put it? Oh, I know where I put it. Anyway, one of my clients, they have a 4.5-year-old little boy. And they set a timer in his room or something. He had to put all his toys away within 15 minutes or something like that. So anyway, and it was about 10 minutes later, the mom goes in his room and there was like 8 minutes left or whatever. Like she knew he'd fudged it. She knew he'd changed the timer. But he was smart enough. He didn't do it too much. He only changed it by about 3 or 4 minutes. So we were just cracking up over that. That's sneaky, eh? He was sneaky enough to know, don't just, turn it all the way up. That was cute. Love your videos, Lori says. Wish I had kids. LOL. Still like watching you. Kids are not for everybody, by the way. I've actually I've worked with people who said if we'd known what we were getting into, we probably never would have had kids. A lot of people have told me that, by the way. They love their children. They die for their children. But looking back, they said literally, we probably, if we'd known what we were in for, we probably would have chosen not to have kids. So I say, well, you're stuck with them now, so let's get to work. So yeah, laugh it off, right? You want to adopt? I was adopted. Yeah, it was a great. If you're going to adopt a child, it's pretty mainstream now that you tell them as early as possible. I was adopted in 1960, and I was like a newborn when I was adopted. And my dad said, well, we don't want to tell her she's adopted. And my mom said, that's ridiculous. I'm telling her. I can remember it like it was yesterday. I was sitting on a big boulder in the backyard watching my mom garden, and I had my little doll with me. And my little doll had dark skin. And my mom said to me, well, not skin, she had dark plastic. So my mom had said to me, she stopped gardening and she was looking at me funny. Now, my mother never looked at me seriously like that. Like, you know, she looked at me differently. She goes, Lisa, she goes, you love your baby, right? And I love this doll. I had that doll till I was 30 and she'd shriveled up into a little raisin. I had to throw her away. I cried when I threw her in the dumpster, wrapped in a blanket, of course, a little shriveled up raisin. Anyway, so I said, yeah, I love my baby. I remember I couldn't really talk properly, but I could, you know, anyway, that was like 2. And so, yeah, I love my baby, whatever. And then she goes, you adopted that baby. You know, most babies are in mommy's tummies because I think we had a neighbor who was pregnant or something. And so they explained that the baby's in there. But you weren't in my tummy, but your brother was, but you weren't in my tummy. We chose you, another lady, blah, blah, blah. And I could still remember that. And she goes, you were chosen, which makes you really special. So she always sold it to me like that, like I was chosen and special. So I was probably about 5 years old. We were, you know, back in the day, we were all out in the street playing with the neighborhood kids. And I can remember telling them this. I remember saying, I'm adopted. And that makes me special because I was chosen. You guys were just had. And that night, my mom got phone calls from all the neighborhood mothers. Can you please tell Lisa to tell our children that they're special too, just because they were had? So mom said that she overshot a little bit and had to explain to me they're special too. But anyway, so yeah. And I grew up, to me, being adopted was, I always talked about it because I looked so different from my family too. I had this huge hair and I just looked different. So I always talked about being adopted, but I know that I grew up with another kid who was adopted and it was a secret. Like no one talked about it. It was like a shame. Secrets imply shame. And I thought, wow, I didn't understand why I was always talking about being adopted and they weren't. But then my mom said, well, don't tell other people that she was adopted because they're not comfortable talking about it. Isn't that interesting, eh? That was back in the 60s. We were dumb. Well, my mom was smart, obviously, but people just didn't know what they were doing sometimes. Yeah, I was chosen. And it was weird because I've never had, one thing that really set me apart from the rest of my family was my giant hair. I've lost half of it now because I'm in my 60s. But I had like tons and tons of hair. It was so heavy. I used to have to pay double at the hair salon because I had so much hair. I would dull all their scissors. I mean, it's heavy, heavy, heavy steel-like hair. So anyway, that always set me apart. And but I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, I'm through one of those DNA things. I found my mother's cousin, my birth mother's cousin, and I didn't know anybody. So, and she said, oh, she goes, I see you've got the family hair color. And then I said, yeah. I said, oh, do I? And she goes, yeah. And she goes, and you won't go gray. Like I don't have gray hair yet. And she goes, yeah, we don't go gray in our family. So isn't that interesting to be able to share something like that? Because I know my kids are my blood relatives, but I've never had anyone older to predict what's going to happen in the future, right? So yeah, because it is, most people think I dye my hair, but I don't because I'm in my 60s, right? But yeah, isn't that interesting? That struck me as, and also we have really light green eyes. And I have these really light green eyes. And that was another family trait. So it's kind of neat. You know, I've never had that before. But I do love being, they're not family to me. Family is who you grew up with. But they're my blood relatives, whatever. My DNA. Okay. Deb from Montreal. So glad I finally caught you live. Raising my grandchildren, boy 14, girl 11. Good for you. I've been Applying your techniques and seeing success. Excellent. So in other words, you're a really good listener. That's my top tip when you're parenting teenagers, because you got a 14 and you got a teenager and a tween. Good for you, by the way. That's a lot. That's a lot of work taking that on. Okay, I'm going to read out my top 3 tips for parenting teenagers. Number 1 is you listen to understand and show empathy. You don't listen to gather information to lecture with. If they want your advice, they'll ask for it. They already know it anyway. Number 2 is you negotiate pretty much everything. It goes something like this. Hey, I want your dirty clothes in the hamper. What do you want from me? You don't do, it's not a blanket statement, but try and negotiate. You give respect to get it, especially with teenagers. And number 3, don't sweat the small stuff with teenagers. If they do something stupid and it's not a big deal, you say, well, that was stupid. Do you want to hear what I did when I was your age? And laugh it off. Or do you want to hear what I did today? Like, I'm always doing dumb stuff. So yeah, you want to be really relatable, but you're also the leader. And when you get good at this, they'll tell you everything. And also, if teenagers know they're going to tell you everything, they're not going to get in trouble. You're sort of like their guiding light. You're sort of the person that they don't want to disappoint, you know? So yeah, think about it. If your teenager tells you everything, are they ever going to do anything bad? Yeah, why would they if they know that they're going to end up telling you? Well, that's awesome, not going great. I never think about it because I've just never had gray hair. But I've had friends who went gray as teenagers. And yeah, imagine that. Imagine going gray at like 16. I like gray hair. I don't think I would dye it anyway because I cut my own hair. I never do anything with my hair. I couldn't imagine dyeing it. Oh, sounds like a lot of work. Okay. But to each his own. I mean, if you don't want gray hair, I think I'll probably just, if I ever do go gray, I'll probably just keep it gray. When dealing with family transitions, they have a level of instability and uncertainty, trauma related. Oh, okay. If you've got all sorts of trauma or PTSD or stuff with kids, that would be coaching. I can't answer that here because I'd have to assess the situation before I can hand out any responsible advice. Okay, so look into coaching. I have a wait list, but I'm planning on taking on 3 new coach clients today. I know the ages I'm targeting, but crisis work is always my top priority. And then my past clients are my second priority. So if you've hired me, and a lot of people did, come back and hire me again because new things come up, right? So, but yeah, those are my 2 top priorities: is crisis work and past clients. But yeah, if you're interested in coaching, check it out. And there's a wait list. I follow all of your advice and it's worked wonders for our 2-year-old. The other day, someone complimented his good behavior. It wasn't that way. It wasn't always that way. So thank you. Okay. I appreciate that. Thanks for giving me some credit, but really all I did was give you advice. You're the one who does the work. So pat yourself on the back, take yourself out for ice cream, do whatever you want, like celebrate that. You've put in the work. It is hard work. It's not supposed to be easy. Getting respect is hard work. Maintaining it's a piece of cake. So yeah, you got to work your butt off to earn that respect. I worked for it with all the kids I worked with and all the kids and the 2 kids I raised. I earned that respect. I didn't expect anything to be handed to me. I wanted to earn it. And I did. So good for you. And you're setting yourself up for years to come. So to make life easier. How'd you get so good at this from your parents? Or I do love telling my story because I think if you have a talent, you should share it. And I never intended to. I started volunteering in daycare centers when I was 11 years old. And my parents were wonderful. I think they let me get away with too much, but my mom was definitely the leader. I cared what she thought, but she didn't look disappointed as often as she should have. Like I didn't get the look as often as I should have. They let me get away with a bit too much, but I was never yelled at or anything. They were very calm. I told my mom everything. She was my best friend. She died in my arms when she was 93 years old. It was actually a beautiful goodbye. Her last breath was laughter. The last gasp was a double gasp because I said, "You're right, Mom. We've said it all. I got nothing to say." So it was a beautiful goodbye. But anyway, that was a huge influence on me, was that I felt very loved and very treasured growing up. And I wanted to make sure that my kids felt that way. But I started volunteering in daycare centers at 11 years old. I was always very maternal. I was mothering everything all the time. And even the daycare lady said, "How do you do that? You're goofy and fun, but the kids look up, they respect you. They do what you say." I didn't know how to answer that, but I think I innately always kind of understood this leadership stuff. I think I always understood kids. Anyway, then I thought I'd become a child psychologist. That was a big flop. They kicked me out because I asked too many questions, because what they were teaching was garbage. This was 45 years ago or something. It was just ridiculous. It was very patronizing, holier than thou. And that's not what I do at all. And I just thought, this is stupid. And all the other students started coming to me and asking me questions about kids. So I thought, yeah, thank God I never took that path. And I would have been under that umbrella. What a disaster. So anyway, I just kept volunteering. I volunteered for like decades with kids. And then I worked with troubled teenagers, some pretty dangerous teenagers. And they're the ones who said, you got to teach this, Lisa. No one's ever talked to us like you do. And then a few years later, I didn't know there was a business teaching parenting. It's kind of arrogant to think you can teach it. But then I realized, maybe I do have some skills. And then in the last 17 years that I've been running my business, I realized I can help thousands of people. If I resonate with you, then follow what I do, what I say. If I don't, move on to someone else. But I do know my method probably isn't the only good method out there, but I do know it works for most people. It would work. If you do it, you got to do it though. So it's a very feel-good business. And my daughter works with me and she goes, this is great. She loves business. She's obsessed with business. She loves it. She does all my marketing, all my planning, all that stuff. And I hate all that stuff. I just like talking to you. And she goes, isn't this great? She goes, that I get to do all this marketing and planning. And it's such a feel-good business too, like helping people. What a great business to have, eh? Helping people. Anyway, I feel very blessed. I'm very fortunate. But it was a long road to get here. I was volunteering with kids in hospitals, detention centers, all sorts of places for decades. And just volunteering because I love kids. And I was good at it. I was good at it. I got respect. But I worked for it. I'm a dog trainer. This is good. Okay. This is from Lori. I'm a dog trainer and people always ask me after coaching them with their dog, they say, now can I train their kids? What's funny is I am lousy with dogs. I've had dogs my whole life. Just the last year and a half, my last dog died and I'm not going to get another one because I got grandkids now and I want to be able to, go out there and that. But yeah, I'm lousy with dogs. Useless. They walk all over me. I spoil them rotten. They don't listen to anything I say. I adopted when I was 8 months pregnant. I think he was 4 years old, a golden retriever from a dog show. That's a really good place to get a very well-trained adult dog. Go to dog shows. They often retire their dogs that aren't showing anymore. He was too wimpy. The female dogs were beating him up in the kennels, so they had to get rid of him. And so I bought him and he was perfectly trained. About a year after being with me, he was spoiled and getting away with everything. So yeah, it doesn't cross over. How do I now get into this? I think I could. I would love to, but I'm older now. You mean get into teaching this? Oh, I see. Okay, I can't give you any advice on that because I'll tell you what I did. I mean, I did a lot of TV and radio and all that sort of stuff. Most of my business came from word of mouth. That was back 17 years ago. Now I'll tell you what I did 2.5 years ago. Okay, if you're interested. This is how my business really took off like a rocket about a year ago. But 2.5 years ago, my daughter said, Mom, you got to go on TikTok, start doing videos on TikTok. And I said, no, I'm not a 12-year-old dancer. She goes, Mom, TikTok's for you. Just do it. I think I got 500,000 followers in 6 months. I blew up on TikTok. Business was going really well. And then my daughter said, last September, she said to me, Mom, business is going well, but when I got some time, she had a full-time corporate job. And she goes, at the end of summer, it'll be our slow season. So I'm going to help you up. I want to set you up with Facebook, Instagram, and I also want to set you up with some systems, funnels and stuff like that. And she goes, just out of the goodness of her heart. Well, it took off like a rocket when she got involved. And now she's leaving her corporate job and she's going to be working with me full time. So yeah, it all happened organically. I've been putting in years into this and it's hard work. You better know what you're doing though. If you don't know your stuff, they're really good poop detectors. So you better be very confident about what you're doing because it's a lot. I take this really seriously. I'm helping people raise their children. There's no way I would do this if I wasn't really confident. Plus if you're and just generally, if you're looking for parenting advice, there's 2 criteria. I would never take advice from someone without these 2 criteria. They have to have finished the job with their own kids. Have they lived with teenagers? That's a whole other game. Okay. Have they lived with teenagers? And number 2, their own kids, right? And number 2, is they have to have had experience with hundreds of other kids with all sorts of challenges. I didn't learn much with my own kids. I got respect when they were tiny and sailed right through the teen years. How could I teach that? Right? It doesn't make any sense. So I work with teenagers and all sorts of toddlers and everything. So those are the two criteria. It is heavily experience-based. The reason I know that is a huge portion of my clients are teachers, principals, child psychologists. They have, all these great degrees, but they still struggle with parenting. So you can't just learn this. You have to, I think, have some innate ability and a lot of experience, because kids, they don't care what kind of degrees that you have. They're going to see past you. If they know that you don't know what you're doing, they're going to see past you. They are so smart. That's why I never tried to act smarter than a kid. I'm a good leader, though. There's a difference. I'm not an authority. Anyway, enough about that. Okay. Oh, what time is it? I have to go. I'm going to go over to Instagram now. I lost Facebook for a whole week. They shut me out. I think because I've got so many imposters on here trying to pretend they're me. I think they thought I was one of those. I don't know what happened. But anyway, I got to go over to Instagram now. Check out the link above. You can get my free behavior board, my mini toddler courses, my big boot camp course, or you can look into coaching. I have a wait list for that right now because I'm really busy. But I'm going to be taking on 3 new clients today. I'm mixing up the ages, though, so you might even get in today. Anyway, thanks so much for joining me, and happy parenting. I'm heading over to Instagram. Is this live? Yep, I'm live. It's from YouTube, if you're still there. Okay. I don't know how many followers I've got on YouTube. I think it's about, I don't know. I know exactly how many I've got on all the other channels, but YouTube, I think I've got about 11,000. YouTube's a beast. It's hard to figure out. Oh, am I on Instagram? I'll know pretty quickly. Instagram, everyone turns up in one clump. Okay, I'm just waiting for everyone to turn up. Usually wait till I get to 150. Good. Okay, thanks. Instagram. Okay, perfect. Okay. As you know, I've had a very frustrating week with my lives because you might not know if you're new, but I was shut out of Facebook. So I just got back in this morning. Oh, geez. I think there's a lot of imposters out there trying to scam people out of money, pretending to be me. I think they thought I was one of those. So they got to get my driver's license and everything. So anyway, I'm all sorted out now. So I'm very happy about that. So I just came from Facebook. I'm on YouTube the whole time I'm doing a live. Now I'm on Instagram and I'll be going to TikTok later. If you're new here, my name's Lisa. I'm a parenting coach. If you go on the link above, you can see my free behavior board, my mini toddler courses, my big boot camp course, or you can look into coaching. I have a wait list for coaching right now because I'm really busy. Anyway, that's that. So let's get going with your parenting questions. I'm going to read out something before we get going, though. I always try and pop in just some general information. There are 4 traits that kids are born with, or they're not. They're either going to do these things or they're never going to do them. So it's not your fault if they do these things, but it's your responsibility to train them out of them. One of them is climbing. One of them is running. One of them is hitting, and the other one is tantrums. They're either one parent said to me, my kids have all 7. There's only 4. Anyway, so yeah, a lot of parents say they got all 4 and even more than that. That's why they have 7. Anyway, or they might just have one. Often runners and climbers go together because they have no fear, right? They just take off in front of traffic or they'll climb up on top of the fridge. They don't care. So they often end up being the athletes of tomorrow because they're very physical. I think my granddaughter's going to be like that. My son, she's only 5 months old. And the other day I saw my son throwing her around upside down and she's laughing and she has no fear. So she's only 5 months old. My kids would have died if we'd done that. They just didn't have it in them. She's a tough little thing. So I think she's going to be a climber, and I don't know if she'll be a runner, but I think she's going to be pretty tough. Yeah, because my son would have had a fit. He was a delicate little rose petal. He would have had a fit if we turned him upside down like that. She's loving it. So yeah, they're born this way. So it's your job to train them out of this stuff or make it safer. Like if they're climbers, there's all sorts of things you can do. So anyway. Okay, so I'm just waiting for your questions. I got lots of those. Okay. My 6-year-old is horribly hyperactive. Okay, that really can be a benefit down the road. A lot of things that are really annoying when they're young can be really beneficial when they're adults. Like to have that hyperactivity. I would say I'm borderline hyperactive as an adult, but I never was as a kid. But yeah, to have that, I think because I work out so much, but having that hyperactivity can be a real benefit down the road. You've got to make sure that they've got outlets for that. That's your job, to find outlets for them to work off this hyperactivity. Another 6 years old, I don't want to recommend stuff because I don't know what your household's like, what you got set up. But there's all sorts of physical stuff that you can get kids to do, like balloon tennis, stuff that's safe to do inside if you can't go outside with them. But you've got to redirect that hyperactivity. It can be a real plus down the road. Thoughts on a 4-year-old who just started defying everything and says, I can do what I want. They usually start that at 3. It just says they don't respect you. That's all. It's all about you and your leadership. Their behavior between the ages of 3 and 12 years old is 100% a direct result of your parenting. So that just says to me, it's a tell. It means you're not a leader and they don't respect you, which is good news. You can only change yourself anyway. So set yourself up as a leader. Check out my boot camp course. It might be a good fit for you. It goes from 3 to 12 years old. That's when you're at the height of your leadership. They want to please you. You got to learn this skill, because if you don't, the teenage years are going to be a lot harder. Things shift and change in the teen years, but I'm always thinking backwards. I specialize in teenage stuff, and I'll tell you, I'm always thinking, how do I get these parents through those teen years? I'm trying to set you up for tomorrow. So yeah, only 4 years old, work on your leadership skills. And you got to put the age down. I won't answer it if you don't put an age down. How to deal with spiteful behavior at the age of 5. It's the exact same answer. Spite, defiance, stubbornness, it all says you're not a leader. It just does. So work on your leadership skills. Children who have a leader, when they look up to you, like, have you ever had a mentor, a teacher that you really looked up to? Didn't you kind of want to please them? Didn't they bring out the best in you? Didn't you like yourself the best when you were with that person? That's what leadership does that's what you do as a leader for your children. So check out my boot camp course. It's 5 weeks. It's full of videos and written stuff, and it's an online course, and you can pace yourself. You can do it whenever you want. A lot of people say, well, when does it, I didn't get to it right away. Does it expire? And I always say the same thing. My courses don't expire unless I do. And they might even keep going after that. I don't know. But so there's no expiry date. You can start it whenever you want, but it's nice. And there's a whole bunch of other information peppered in there too, about sex education, allowance, all chores, all sorts of stuff. But it's all about you and your leadership. Okay, this is what I was going to suggest for that hyperactive 6-year-old. I don't know if that is the same parent. No, it isn't, I don't think. I have an indoor rebounder trampoline and an outdoor trampoline. It's so effective for any yeah, that's what I was going to recommend. That's why I said I don't want to recommend anything, because I didn't know how your household was set up. But you know those rebounders, I just don't know if it's too small for a 6-year-old. That's all. That's why I was sort of rethinking that. But yeah, those little rebound round things that have the bar on it, I think a 6-year-old might be a little bit too old for that. I don't know. I have no idea how big your 6-year-old would. Anyway, I had this client and they said, look what my crazy kid does on that thing. Because I recommended one, they got it. They showed their kid. They had a video of this kid was using that bar that you hang on to, and it's just a bar that goes on there and they're hanging on jumping. They don't jump on that little trampoline. They just spin around the bar, and this kid was spinning. She goes, I can't tell you the word she used. It was swearing. Look at my dumb blank kid. But worked off his energy, so it worked out great. Oh, God, kids are funny. I laugh a lot in coaching. Some of the stuff that comes up. Okay. 3-year-old starting school for the first time. Any preparation advice? Yes, what I did with my kids, and you can't really prepare them for being dumped off with strangers, but you can kind of help a little bit. What I did do with my kids is, I think the first thing they ever started would have been kindy at 3 years old. And I took them to the kindy. I did the drive. I packed a lunch. And I don't think we could get in. I can't remember. I'm pretty sure the gate was locked. But anyway, so we went in there. I know what we did. We went around the back. The elementary school backed onto this one kindy that one of my kids went to. And we went around the back and we sat outside the fence of the kindy playground. And we sat and ate lunch so that she was familiarized with the kindy area. So I said, look, there's this, there's that. Do you know why A lot of these places don't have swings because kids are walking around getting hit in the head all the time. But anyway, so I showed her all that, and I said, and then you'll be doing this. So I sort of got her more familiar with it. And we packed a bag and went there and everything. So it's not the same as being dumped off with strangers. You know what was funny is they had two teachers. She had two teachers my son went to, I can't remember their names, his teachers. He was older. But anyway, she had two teachers. One of them, I can't remember her name because it was such a simple name. It was like Mary Smith. So Mrs. Smith was her name, but the assistant teacher's name was Mrs. Lobegeiger. And now none of the moms could pronounce it, but all those little 3-year-olds, hi, Mrs. Lobegeiger. They all knew how to say it. So it was so cute. Because we thought, oh, great. And we were laughing. We say, shouldn't you just change your name to Jones or something? And she goes, no, they all learn it. I'm Mrs. Lobegeiger. Okay, tips for impulse control for 6-year-old girl. Consequences. She hasn't learned yet that if she makes poor choices, that there's a consequence. That's your job to teach her that. It's your job to teach your children how to be accountable for what they say, what they do, how they act, everything. Okay. So check out my behavior board. It's completely free. It's in the link above. If you want to go next level up, check out the boot camp course. I don't think you need coaching for that, but yeah, just check out the boot camp course. And it's all about teaching children how to be accountable. You're on that behavior board too. That's what makes it work. Leaders lead by example, not by commanding. I don't teach the authority style or, the dictator kind of style parenting. It's not a bad way to parent, the old fashioned authority style, but they do tend to rebel in the teen years. As a leader, they don't. They don't rebel against leaders. My son was 15 and he was kind of mad when he said this. And he says, well, I can't even rebel with you. You're too reasonable and easy to talk to. I didn't know whether to celebrate or apologize. I think I apologized to him to his face and then I went and celebrated. Yeah, that's a shame. You can't rebel? That's too bad. Okay. Is there any advice for a toddler who always wants more? Don't give them more. You meet their needs and you manage their wants. Manage their wants. If they always want more, just don't give it to them. Give them as much as you feel is reasonable and then stop. Easy. The problem is parents are very weak when it comes to scenes. I don't know why. Like to me, a scene is like, oh, my opportunity to exercise my leadership. If you haven't watched Twilight, you wouldn't know what I'm thinking of. There was a battle scene in Breaking Dawn, and the head of from Italy, and when the war broke out, one of the head guys went, finally, he got to fight. And it just reminds me of that. Whenever I'm dealing with a difficult kid, as soon as they have a tantrum, I'm like, finally, like that's my opportunity to exercise my leadership. In other words, that ain't working on me. So it's like that. Does anyone watch Twilight? I was a Twi mom. I don't like stuff like that generally, but I was addicted. I went to the very last Breaking Dawn. There was 2 of them. So anyway, I went to the very last movie all by myself at noon, and it was me. Oh, the kids were in school. It was me and a bunch of moms laughing, crying. I didn't like Hunger Games as much. The first one I did, but the other ones weren't as good. Okay. In doing chores as a consequence, going to put a negative view on housework in the future. You don't have to put a positive view on housework. There's lots of things that you just have to do. They're either going to like it or they're going to hate it. I happen to love cleaning. That has nothing to do with what was done to me growing up. It was just my way. I just always loved cleaning and organizing my own bedroom, and I just loved it. And I'm really fussy. So yeah, what difference does it make? What difference does it make if they have a negative view of housework? Most people don't like it anyway. So why are you worried about that? Okay, that's the pleaser parent style. We want to make everything fun and enjoyable. Why would you want to do that? I want to teach kids how to do the hard stuff. I was praying to God, and my kids are 15. They went out and got a temporary job, one of those part-time teenage jobs. I was praying to God they'd have to clean a public toilet at least once. And they did. I was thrilled. I don't want to make everything easy for my kids. That's the pleaser parent style. You're raising self-entitled snowflakes with mental health issues. They're the woke victims who are so entitled and weak and all that. So yeah, don't try and make everything fun. Who cares if they hate housework? Team Edward, me too. Twilight fan. Oh, you know the scene. Finally. Okay. Funny thing is, I was way more into it than my daughter was. We tore through those books. We were reading them together. And we just tore passing it off. Here you go. Here you go. And I think she was 15 at the time. And she met Jacob on Robson Street here in Vancouver. They filmed the movies here in Vancouver. And she met Jacob, whatever his name is. And she got a picture with him. And then we saw the filming because we used to hike near where they were. I used to suss it out, find where they were, and then drive around, find it. Crazy Twymum. Your plants are thriving. Yeah, I'm pretty good with plants, but I have quite a dark apartment because it's a good facing apartment because it doesn't get too hot. But yeah, when you go in the depths of my apartment, it's all fake plants. Six-year-old still has terrible separation anxiety. Normal or concerning at this age? Well, I don't know if it's concerning, but more about you. Do you make a big deal out of goodbyes and hellos? That's usually what causes that. Parents are usually the source of separation anxiety. So if you fuss over the goodbyes and the hellos and make a big deal out of it, then you're accelerating the anxiety. So just say, okay, we'll see you later, and then go. If you're doing that right, then it might be a bit of a concern, but overall, they're only 6. Yeah, I wouldn't worry about it. Well, okay, how do you get a 2.5-year-old to sit still in a restaurant? Okay, that's sort of like saying, how do you get a 2-year-old to sit still in church? Like, how boring for them, right? It's pretty boring. But you know what I did with my kids? They were really good. We could take them anywhere, but I was very good at meeting their needs. So what I would do is I would feed them before we went out. Then I would take them to a park and let them run around. And then when we got to the restaurant, I pulled out a brand new coloring book and crayons that they'd never seen before. So I met their needs so that by the time we got there, there were no trouble. Right? Are you meeting their needs? There's foods they don't like. Plus my kids sat still. They sat at mealtime at home too. The way they are at home is going to be the way they are when they're out. Don't expect them to have different personalities when you go out. That's ridiculous. You be on your best behavior. Every time I hear that, I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? You have a different personality. Like, that's what you're saying. It doesn't make any sense at all. I would never say that to my kids. They were good everywhere. So yeah, if they're good at home, they're good at when they're out. But yes, meet their needs and manage their wants. Preach. What does that mean? I mean, I know what preach means, but okay. We definitely less woke children. This victim mentality. That's all as a result of the pleaser parent style. That pleaser parent style came in 40 years ago. I think it was around 40 years. And it started with participation awards. I remember the first time I ever heard of that, I said, yeah, good one. I couldn't believe it was true. You turn up and you get an award? How stupid. I remember thinking you're going to raise self-entitled snowflakes with mental health issues. And here we are. Isn't that the stupidest thing? I just went grocery shopping earlier. I turned up. I didn't get an award. Where the heck is my award for turning up? Right? The stupidest thing I ever heard of. And then it just got worse and worse and worse. And I was complimenting your speech by saying preach it. When I first went on TikTok, when you first turn up somewhere and you're new, people came after me. And I'll tell you, this is really funny, actually. I love this story. It's a bit spiteful, but it was funny. Anyway, when I first went on, I blew up overnight on TikTok, just instantly. 500,000 followers in 6 months. Well, you should have seen people coming after me. They were reporting me, trying to shut me down. Of course, it was my competitors. I don't know them, but people were telling me it's this other parenting coach, and they're coming after. I don't know any other parenting coach. I never look. I have no idea who's out there. Anyway, you know what was so funny? Is they were doing dual videos. They were taking one of my videos and then they were doing a dual video of them insulting everything I was saying. And they drove all my followers. That's how I got to grow so fast. It was my competitors. Finally, I started feeling bad for them. I started to pity them. I thought, how stupid is this? I can't figure that out. So anyway, I told them that. And in my lives, I started saying, thank you so much for growing my channel for me by doing all those vicious dual videos. And they all stopped instantly. I had a blast. I love stuff like that. Oh, it was great. Because I love karma. I just love it. What you put out, you get back. I thought that was hilarious. Okay. My 7-year-old, you're going to hate my answer. My 7-year-old is speaking to me disrespectful and swearing a lot. How do I get the behavior to change? You don't fix kids. You fix yourself. They are a reflection of your parenting or lack of leadership. Work on yourself. When you're a leader, that doesn't happen. Kids don't swear. They don't act disrespectful with leaders. It just says you're not a leader. Everyone blames their kids for their behavior. It's not their fault. They're a victim of your parenting. Think about it. If you were a leader, your child would not be doing that, okay? Work on your leadership skills. This is something I've been trying to get this across to everybody. It's not your kids' fault when they're acting out. Take full responsibility. When I was working with kids and they acted out under my care, under my mentorship, I always thought, this is what I thought. What am I missing here? What am I doing wrong? I would never blame a kid for their behavior when they're under my care. I always think, what am I doing wrong? What am I missing here? So as a parent, you take responsibility for your children. Don't blame them. Everyone's very quick to blame their kids and not themselves. I find that interesting. Why are parents so quick to blame their kids but not themselves? Who do you love more? I find that fascinating. My mind doesn't even go there. How could you blame your kids for their behavior and not you? I don't get that. Take full responsibility for your children's behavior. The sooner the better. It's always the kid's fault. We started Mom's Bank. I really like it. Okay, Mom's Bank is something that I teach. I've got lots of. It's called The Allowance. You can look it up. My kids were 3 and I started. I'll tell you this cute story, actually. What time? Yeah, I got to go soon anyway. But anyway, I started at 3 years old. I gave my kids allowance. And I got it was bigger than this, but I got this 3-column ledger, it was called. It was a big red ledger book. And I used to buy them over the years. I started one kid in the front. I only had 2 kids and 1 kid in the back. When they met in the middle, I started a new one. God, I wish I'd kept those books. I remember chucking them a while ago thinking I shouldn't do this. And I wish I'd kept them. I could have showed you. Anyway, and it had every Saturday morning we did their allowance. And they don't have to earn allowance. You do chores anyway. There's no way I'm paying a kid for looking after the house, like looking after themselves. You clean up after yourselves. I would never pay for chores. I would pay for detailing my car and mowing the lawn, but not just basic, household stuff. Anyway. Allowance is different. Every child deserves to learn how to manage and respect money. So every Saturday morning we go date, description, debit, credit, balance. So I'd give them allowance. You can look it up. I go into how you give them interest. Every $100 they get 10%, but only on the same amount once. So if they save $700, they get $70 interest. But if they went down, spent money, then they wouldn't get another $70. They'd have to get to $800. So they only got interest on the same amount once. Also, when they reached $1,000, they got $100. So they went straight up to $1,100. Then I gave them $10. I started back on $10, 10% interest on each 100 after each 1,000 also. Anyway, look it up in the videos. Anyway, here's what this is good for. And then at 15 years old, I cashed them out. And I put all their money in a bank, and then they got debit cards and they were on their own. But this is it gave you an opportunity every single week to discuss money. This was their money, but it was their money to save. I was in charge of spending and all their treats and everything. Like I don't want kids to ever have cash in their hand because they're just going to spend it irresponsibly and usually on candy and junk. So I never gave my kids cash. So what we do is we discuss, hey, do you really want to buy this or buy that or something? I'd say, sure, let's do it. But it gave us an opportunity to discuss money every single week. But I'll tell you a cute story. I usually only tell this in coaching. Most of my stories I only tell in coaching. Anyway, this is a Pokemon card story. My son was 8 years old. It's kind of a long story, but it's cute. And it's just one of the many things I did with this allowance. It's the power of this, okay? Anyway, it's a leadership skill. Anyway, my son was 8 years old and Pokemon cards were just invented. And they used to give them out in these little foil packs or something at school. So it got the kids addicted to them and they all started trading them. And I hate garbage like that. It just drives me nuts because it's just a waste of money. So anyway, I said to my son, I'll tell you what, I don't want you to have any Pokemon cards. And I said, if anyone gives you any, if you get them at school or whatever, just give them off to your friends for a whole year. 1 year from today, I'll explain why. And I said to my son, are you in? And he looked at me. He loved it when I was scheming with something. And he says, yeah, okay. So anyway, for a whole year, all of his friends were buying. They were spending all their money, everything, every cent they got, they'd buy Pokemon cards. They were all trading them. He's just sitting back watching. And one of the kids evidently said to him, why aren't you saving these cards? And he says, oh, Mom's got a plan. And they knew me. So oh, okay. Like they knew I was scheming something. So anyway, 1 year later, they all went back to the next grade. They all went back and they were over the Pokemon cards. They were flicking them card flicking. They were using them in stacks to level off their chairs. I mean, they were just over it. all that wasted money, eh? So anyway, I said to my son, okay, it's been 1 year ago today. And he was so excited. He was dying to see what I was going to do. So I said to him, I said, okay, so I figured that you saved $600 because I asked the other parents how much money they were spending and their kids were spending and grandparents were spending on these dumb Pokemon cards. So it worked out to about $600 per year. So I said, you saved $600. I'm going to give you a bonus of $300 for doing that, plus $150 to buy video games. And no, not plus, but of that $300 bonus, you can take $150 out and buy video games. Anyway, what a great way to use this mom's bank, eh? Or just call it allowance, whatever. But yeah, it was just another leadership skill. And I was teaching my kids the value of $1 and saving and what it can get you. You can spend a lot, you can spend money every day on the little stuff, or you can save up for the big stuff that actually matters, right? So they got that. How to ensure your kids have high self-esteem. Set yourself up as a leader. Leaders have children with high self-esteem because you're bringing out the best in your children. You're giving them things to be proud of by being nice people, right? So give them something, and they like themselves when they're with you. That's the goal of leadership. Your children like themselves when they're with you. Therefore, they want to please you. When I was working with teenagers years later, one of them contacted me and said, you got to teach this stuff, Lisa. They said, no one's ever talked to us like you do. And then he said, I didn't like myself until I met you. I thought, that's the best compliment anyone's ever given me. I didn't like myself until I met you. So you're bringing out the best in them. They have very high self-esteem when they're with you. Now, how are you going to treat someone that makes you feel that good? How are you going to treat that person? I don't take any crap, by the way. I don't take any crap. But I know how to bond with kids. The pool story is the epitome of this leadership stuff. It's the very first video here. It's called Example of Leadership Parenting, and it's my pool story. It explains leadership parenting. You deal with bad behavior, then you focus on the good kid. Where you put your energy, where you put your focus is what grows. Too many people are focused on bad behavior as if it's their fault. It's not. It's your fault that they're acting out. So work on yourself, and you encourage them to, you bring out the best in them. Anyway, I got to go. I'm going to TikTok now. If you want to join me over there, it's Bratbusters Parenting. If not, check out the link above. You can get my free behavior board, my mini toddler courses, my big boot camp course, so you can look into coaching. I have a wait list for coaching, but I will be taking on 3 new clients today. So, and depends if you're in crisis, that's first priority with coaching. So, and crisis is not, I've got a 2-year-old having tantrums. Crisis is the big teenage life and death stuff, the abuse, the trauma. I specialize in crisis work with teenagers. So that's always first priority. Anyway, I got to go. And I'm on YouTube the whole time. Okay. So whenever I'm filming a live, I'm on YouTube the whole time. That's where all of these lives are saved. Anyway, I'm heading over to TikTok. Happy parenting. Bye now. Okay. Oh God, I can't turn my neck. Got a crook in my neck. Is that what that's called? A crook? Crook. What's that called? You know how you know when you get out of bed and you go, oh, today's going to be a nasty day. I just knew. Did something to myself. Oh, very good question. Hope you're still here, Suzanne, on YouTube. I don't enjoy pretend play, so throw myself into other things my 3-year-old likes. Trips, fishing, cycling. Is this enough? Yeah, that's enough. I always talk about entering their world, but if they're having fun with you, that is their world. So yeah, that's great. Wonderful. Most of what I teach, it seems to be discipline, because that's all I'm reacting to. In my live, I'm reacting to questions. In coaching, not like that at all. It's all about connecting with your kids and bonding with them. And that's what I'm all about. I'm about connecting with kids and bonding with them and being friends with them, but also the leader. That is your superpower. It's not discipline. Discipline's a tiny part of it. But yeah, it's all about connecting with kids. So you're already doing that. Yeah, doing good. Okay, I'm going to tell you a funny story. It's one that makes me look bad, but it's a good story. So first of all, I'm just going to introduce myself. If you're new here, my name's Lisa. I'm a parenting coach. I might wait till a few more people get here, actually. Yeah, TikTok's slow for people to come in. Instagram, everyone turns up right away. But 150 people in 10 seconds. It's the only one that happens that way. I don't know why. How do I introduce timeout? Yuck, I hate timeout. Don't do it. Don't do it. Timeout's horrible. It's humiliating. Doesn't teach them anything but how to go in a corner and feel like crap about themselves. No lesson in timeout at all. It's horrible. Yeah, don't do it. Okay. Anyway, so my name is Lisa. I'm a parenting coach. If you go on the link above, you can see my free behavior board, my mini toddler courses, my big boot camp course, or you can look into coaching. I have a wait list for coaching, by the way, because I'm really busy. But anyway, you can look it up and let me know if you want to hire me for coaching. And there's a wait list. Anyway, what was I going to say? Oh, yeah, I'm going to tell you a funny story. It's funny, makes me look bad as a mom. Anyway, my son was 8 years old. We just got the PlayStation. It was a big deal. Okay. And he had all these racing games, and I had Crash Bandicoot. So, well, we all played that, but that was the only one I could do. So anyway, when he went to bed, it was Saturday night, and he goes to bed, and he had been working for weeks on this racing game. And, I get to different levels. I don't know. Anyway, so and then he saved it on the memory card, right? So he saved it. He goes to bed. So my husband at the time and I were up playing Crash Bandicoot. So then I said, oh God, I'm getting tired. I'm going to go to bed. So I saved it. And my husband said, you know what you did, don't you? And I said, what? And he goes, you just saved over his game. And I said, no, I didn't. I felt sick instantly. I said, no, I didn't. He goes, find it. Pause. I'm looking. I had saved over my son's. He worked for weeks to get up to this certain level in this racing thing. And I put my dumb little Crash Bandicoot over top of it. My level 1 or something. Anyway, so I lost all of his levels. So anyway, the next day, and I'm a leader. I'm accountable for my mistakes. You got to be, right? So I thought, oh, geez, what am I going to do? So the next morning, I was up early. I was having a cup of tea. I was going to have to face him. I was so upset because I knew how upset he was going to be. And anyway, so I hear him in the other room. He's starting to wake up. So I go in, I sit on his bed, and I go, sweetie, I got something to talk to you about. And he goes, what? He could tell I was upset about something. And I said, look, I'm really sorry, but accidentally I saved over your PlayStation game with my Crash Bandicoot. And he starts to cry. And I say, if you don't cry, I'll buy you a brand new PlayStation game. And he goes, oh, okay. I'd really like this. So we got a brand new PlayStation game out of that. And they also bought me my very own memory card, and I wasn't allowed to touch anyone else's after that. But yeah, you mess up. That's what a leader does. You mess up, you're accountable. You make it up to them. There's 4 steps to apologizing effectively. Number 1, say you're sorry. Number 2, take full responsibility. Number 3 is you make amends. Make it up to them. What can you do to make it up to someone when you mess up? And number 4, don't keep doing it. That's why they got me my own memory card after that. Mom wasn't allowed to touch anyone else's. So yeah, I was very accountable. And now, how did that make him feel? He got a brand new PlayStation game. Well, the joke after that was that he kept trying to replace my memory card with his, so I'd save over it and you get a new game. So I said, if that happens, I said, you're not getting a new game anyway. The funny part was that it took him like an hour to get back to where he was because he was so good at it at that point. So he'd worked for weeks to get up to that level, and then it took him like just the afternoon or whatever to get right back and above. So anyway, it was funny. Where am I from? I'm here in Vancouver, Canada. My kids were born and raised in Australia, though. Was there for about 20 years. So we're back here in Canada again. My almost 3-year-old says no constantly, and it drives us nuts. What do we do? What does it matter what they say? Like, what difference does it make? I don't understand. Okay, time for bed. No. Well, I'd be getting them dressed, putting them in bed. Like, take action. When they say no, if you say something's going to happen, take action. Ignore the no. Do you coach for parents of toddler? It's very different for teenagers and toddlers. I specialize in teenagers, but if you can do teenagers, you can do any age. But toddlers are more building a base for tomorrow. So what I do is the first hour that I have a toddler parent in a coaching session, that's a whole hour. And I go into the top 5 parenting or toddler tips and all that. We go into detail. I ask them questions, how they've got their home set up and all that. We get toy rotation system in place. We get structure, we get that. And then I say to them, okay, so then we might meet the next week. I try and cut the sessions in half. And then I say, you just call me whenever you need me. Because with toddlers, they're not going to learn a lot right now, but you are building your base. You're building your base. You're preparing for tomorrow more than anything. So there's not a lot of processes, methodologies that we go through. It's more just addressing everyday stuff that comes up. So sometimes parents of toddlers won't call me for 6 months and they say, hey, I need another session. And then he just started biting. What do I do? Okay, here's what you do for that. So, but if it's 3 and over, we use the behavior board, and then there's methods and there's a whole process. It's the whole system. Yeah. But yeah, toddlers. It's building a base for tomorrow. They're my least favorite age, I'll be honest. Toddlers, because to raise, because they're just so clumsy. They're cute as anything, but they're all feet, no brains. I couldn't take my kids anywhere without watching them like a hawk. I was always worried they were going to walk into traffic or something. So they were so physically demanding, and I have a really bad back, so it was kind of hard on me physically. But that was my least favorite age, was the toddler age, because of the safety issues. My favorite age is teenagers. When you know how to handle teenagers, how to handle yourself around teenagers, they're lovely. So toddlers are the most demanding physically, and because I have such a bad back, that was difficult for me. Teenagers are the most demanding emotionally, but once you understand them, they're not at all. So I'm going to read out my top 3 tips for parenting teens. I'm getting a little sweaty. Top 3 tips for parenting teenagers. Number 1 is you listen to understand and show empathy. You don't listen to gather information to lecture with, or they will shut you out. If they want your advice, they'll ask for it. They already know it anyway. Number 2 is you negotiate pretty much everything. It's not a blanket statement, but negotiate where you can. It goes something like this. Hey, I want your dirty clothes in the hamper. What do you want from me? So you negotiate, right? Number 3 is don't sweat the small stuff. Don't try and micromanage a teenager. If they do something stupid and it's not a big deal, just say, well, that was stupid. Do you want to hear what I did when I was your age? And laugh it off. Or do you want to hear what I did today? Like, laugh it off. It's okay to actually make mistakes in life. That's called being human. Just like you were, just like you are. We all make mistakes. And they're learning. And so they're going to make more mistakes than you do. Or maybe not. Is there a way to stop my 16-month-old from running off? Yeah, you got a runner on your hands. Get a leash, put a harness on them, and as soon as they start to run, clip them in, and that'll send the message, no running. They'll eventually learn. You keep them clipped in for the rest of that outing. And you might say to me, but they're going to be having a fit. I can't, right? So then do some trial runs. Go somewhere you don't need to go so you can clip them in and let them have a tantrum. But if you're in a rush, that's not the time to train them usually. I've been directed to work with a family of a 4-year-old who can't manage him. Thoughts, please. You want me to help you coach other people? It took me 52 years to learn this. You want me to teach you that? I don't understand what you mean. I have no idea what you mean. I never judge a mom with a leash after my first baby. Who gives a crap what anyone thinks? Yeah, I could care less. If you got a runner, put him on a leash. Teenage boy curious on having a girlfriend. How do I guide and talk about everything? Yeah. There's a whole bunch of stories I tell in coaching, but there might be kids watching here. So yeah, just be very open to talking about everything. I know when my kids were teenagers, I said, let me know when you want me to go to Costco and get a flat of condoms. So, oh, mom, like I was very open. We talked about it. They told me everything. Yeah. Did I want to hear it? No, but I'm glad they told me. Am I glad they told me? Maybe not, but they did. My 22-year-old just moved out. I miss him so much, but feel disconnected. Welcome to the empty nest syndrome. I went through that. Although it's different with daughters, I think. My son, I always have to reach out to him. It's very rare that he reaches out to me. That's typical son usually, or common. My daughter, we talk every day. So, and we work together and everything. So, but yeah, that's part of the whole thing. You got to keep reaching out. Like that's what I do with my son. You got to keep reaching out. And yeah, it's just part of the empty nest syndrome. You've done your job. If they're independent, they grow up and they move out, that's part of it. It's difficult though. Any tips for preteen girls? Not really, but talk openly about everything, about periods and all that stuff and boobies growing and, just talk about it. It's like it's no big deal. The more often you talk about things, but not in a serious, let's have a talk, just like we'd just be driving down the street and I'd talk about something like it was no big deal. I remember once, oh God, I can't say that story on here. Oh God, some of the stuff I told my kids. And plus, I never tried to act like I was cool with any of this stuff. It was awkward, but we talked about everything. I remember once I had a conversation. He says he's 34. He said he has no memory of this conversation. I remember it like it was yesterday. I'm sure he's blocked it out of his mind because it was very damaging. He was a teenager and we were discussing something very intimate that I wanted him to know about girls. And as soon as I started talking, we were in the van driving along and he instantly goes, oh God, no. And he's up against the window going, help, help. And I'm driving and I'm like, oh God. And then what you do is, oh my God, it was agony. So we were laughing but he was listening. So yeah, I never tried to be cool about it, but I did discuss everything. And then they tell you everything. The more open you are, the more open they are with you. I got an 18-month-old tantrum. Check out my tantrum course. It's called, what's it called? Tantrum Busting, 1 to 3-year-olds. And it's just on my podium. It's in the link above. Check out. It's my mini course called Toddler Tantrum Busting. And it teaches you how you ignore a tantrum effectively. You don't just walk away. You're right there. I'll tell you a quick story. My son was 3 and it was his second to last tantrum. We were in a mall and I pulled him off to the side and then I just stand there filing my nail. I wouldn't look at him or talk to him. I literally pulled out a nail file and I'm like this. It wasn't disturbing anyone because it was a very loud, busy mall. So I guess I was calling attention to myself because I'm just standing there like this, ignoring my kid. So all these young moms kept coming up to me. Oh, you should give him a hug. Talk about his feelings. I'm like, oh, good. Keep moving. They didn't know what the heck they were talking about. Anyway, but all these grandmothers and moms with older kids kept coming up to me saying, good on you. You know what you're doing. I'm like, yeah, I know what I'm doing. Anyway, finally his tantrum stopped. He's starting to learn mom's not going to put up with this crap. So it ended. And I said, oh, you all done? Okay, let's go. I don't discuss tantrums before, during, or after. Any attention is tantrum food. Okay, you're fertilizing it. If you're looking at them or talking to them, it's tantrum is a loss of emotional control at not getting what they want. You do not need to validate that at all. Completely ignore it. What do you think about gentle parenting? I've never looked at it. I've never discussed it. I don't know any other parenting methods out there. I know a whole bunch of theories out there that are floating that my parents tell me, my clients tell me. Right. But I've never looked at what anyone else does. I am very careful about that. If I ever insult anything, I don't know who else is teaching it because I've never looked at why would I look at what anyone else is teaching? I'm self-taught. Kids taught me all this. Over 52 years I've been working with kids. So yeah. Okay. Can we ask questions while taking your course? Not really. And that would be coaching, right? But you can ask questions about the course if it's not clear. But no, coaching does not come with the course. I've got a lot of parents going through that. If they all had the ability to ask me questions as they went along, I couldn't function. So yeah, no, it's independent. But if you have a question about the course and it's not clear somewhere, it's kind of been, I think, pretty edited out by this time. So it doesn't happen often, but yeah. Or sometimes what'll be happening is a parent will start going through the course and they say, it's just not working. And then they'll tell me what's going on with their kid and I'll say, that's coaching. So sometimes they'll move over to coaching because it's just not enough. The course is just mainstream. It's meant for the normal stuff out there. But if you've got something where a child's been traumatized or been abused by someone or, stuff like that, that would be coaching. So that's the only time that, really it's an issue. But otherwise, that course is pretty you can get yourself through it usually. What time is it? Actually, I have to get going. If you want to check out the link above, you can see my free behavior board, my mini toddler courses, my big boot camp course, or you can look into coaching. I have a wait list for coaching right now because I'm pretty busy. Anyway, thanks so much for joining me. And I'm back on Facebook now. Facebook locked me out for a whole week. I've got a lot of imposters out there pretending to be me, because I've got a big following across my platforms now. And yeah, I think they just thought I was one of those imposters. Anyway, they got my driver's license, they got my blood, basically, and now I'm back in. Thank God. They didn't even apologize for locking me out. But anyway, I'm back in now, so I'm really happy about that. So thanks so much for joining my live, and I'll be back again hopefully sometime tomorrow. I never know what time. It just depends on how my life's going. Happy parenting. Bye now.